In 2019, what began as a seemingly adventurous experiment between two couples in the idyllic town of Pine Hill turned into a tragic tale of obsession and murder. The lives of Daniel and Linda Garner and Mark and Jennifer Johnson became entwined in a dark web of passion, deceit, and ultimately, a gruesome crime that left the community reeling. Through meticulous investigative work and the relentless pursuit of justice, the truth behind Jennifer Johnson's murder was finally uncovered, bringing closure to a case that shocked everyone involved. Hello and welcome to our channel. If you are new here, please subscribe and press the bell notification. Let's have a look at the story of how a wife swap fantasy turned into an obsession and ended in murder. Daniel Garner was a highly regarded architect who was particularly well known for his charming personality and forward-thinking designs. He seemed to have a perfect marriage to Linda, who was a well-liked third-grade teacher. They had been together for 10 years and found themselves living in a wonderful house on Maple Street. The property was surrounded by a garden that Linda took great care in tending to and maintaining. Daniel was a renowned figure in the community due to the fact that he was celebrated for his captivating personality as well as his professional accomplishments. The pupils admired Linda, and her colleagues appreciated her. On the other hand, Linda was respected by her colleagues. They seemed to be the epitome of the perfect suburban couple when they were together. After moving to Pine Hill 5 years ago, Mark and Jennifer Johnson instantly became acquainted with the Garners through their shared friendship. In addition to being a successful financial advisor, Mark was a friendly and gregarious individual who was always the light of the party. Jennifer was immensely well-liked in social circles due to the fact that she possessed both arresting beauty and a fascinating personality. A new dynamic was introduced to the neighborhood by the Johnsons, and their friendship with the Garners developed as a result of their mutual respect and the fact that they shared numerous interests. They spent time together at weekend vacations and neighborhood picnics, and before long, their connection grew stronger in ways that were surprising. The concept of exchanging wives was initially discussed at a dinner party that took place at the residence of the Garners. The topic of open relationships was brought up throughout the conversation, which was heightened by the presence of wine and a spirit of adventure. However, rather than being welcomed with shock, the concept was met with curiosity, which surprised everyone. In the following weeks, the couples had serious discussions about the proposal and agreed on boundaries and rules to ensure their primary relationships remained intact. In spite of its awkwardness, the initial meeting was intriguing. During the course of the evening, Daniel and Jennifer, as well as Mark and Linda, switched partners. They found it to be an experience that was both thrilling and nerve-wracking, but it was also one that left them wanting more. What was initially an experiment that they did once in a while eventually turned into a daily part of their life, which added a spark to both of their marriages. At first, it appeared that the arrangement would be successful. Both couples appeared to be more content and connected to one another. They continued to participate in social activities, such as frequently throwing parties together and traveling on trips together frequently. They kept their secret a closely guarded secret, and they only discussed it within the walls of their homes or during occasions that were very private. Over the course of several months, minor shifts started to become apparent, most notably in Daniel's behavior. His interest with Jennifer eventually turned into an obsession that consumed him completely. He was always thinking about her, and his thoughts kept going back to the times when they had met, whether it was at work or at dinner with his family. It appeared like his yearning for Jennifer was more important than his architectural endeavors, which had been his obsession in the past. Daniel began to look for methods to be in close proximity to Jennifer, such as offering his assistance with tasks that Mark is typically responsible for or bringing the Johnsons over on a more regular basis. As Linda started to become aware of these shifts, she began to keep a closer check on him. When she discovered that he was glancing at Jennifer during gatherings, his stare lingered for a longer period of time than was required, and her suspicions began to grow. In the first, Jennifer was flattered by Daniel's attention. Nevertheless, she quickly found that it was uncomfortable. He began to touch with a more possessive touch, and his comments became more intimate than they should have been. During their conversation, she expressed her unease to Mark, who dismissed it, stating that he believed Daniel was simply more attentive. But Jennifer made the decision to terminate the arrangement, with the expectation that by doing so, Daniel would come to his senses, and they would all be able to move on from this chapter without inflicting any additional pain to themselves or to others. Daniel unexpectedly showed up at the Johnsons' home one evening, when Mark was gone on a business trip. When Mark was away, Daniel was there. Astonished, Jennifer allowed him to enter in the hopes of avoiding a confrontation. As they sat in the living room, the atmosphere was thick with anxiety that was not vocalized. Jennifer was disturbed by Daniel's confession of his emotions for her, which he delivered with a strong sense of resignation. Although she made an effort to convince him to change his mind, Daniel's desperation evolved into anger for her. In a moment of wrath, Daniel had Jennifer killed by his own hand. Quickly seizing control of the situation, Linda was motivated by a perverted sense of loyalty and the need to see herself through to the end. She escorted Daniel to the restroom and gave him instructions to take off his clothing and wash off the blood. Because of the critical nature of their situation, her thoughts were racing. She was aware that they needed to move quickly in order to conceal the crime and safeguard their covered existence. After gathering Daniel's clothing and the weapon used in the murder, Linda drove to a remote location outside of town and torched them, praying that the fire would consume any evidence that was still present. All of the residents of the neighborhood, including the Garners, were being questioned by the police. After considerable consideration, Linda's carefully designed alibi was able to withstand inspection, and Daniel, despite seeming extremely distressed, was able to avoid raising suspicion. Nevertheless, the process of unraveling their lie began with the forensic study of Jennifer's phone records and the statements of witnesses. Following the progression of the inquiry, Detective Mitchell developed a sense of mistrust toward the Garners. Through forensic analysis of Jennifer's phone records, it was discovered that Daniel had sent Jennifer a series of text messages that became increasingly frantic. As a result of the evidence of a neighbor who stated that they saw Daniel's car close to the Johnsons' house on the night of the murder, Daniel was further implicated. As the amount of evidence accumulated, Daniel finally gave in to the rising pressure and admitted to having committed the murder. After initially denying any involvement, Linda finally revealed that she had assisted Daniel out of a false feeling of loyalty and out of fear of giving up everything that they had worked so hard to create. Pine Hill and the surrounding area were completely enthralled by the trial brought on by Daniel and Linda Garner. There was a large number of media and inquisitive observers present in the courtroom. It was abundantly evident that Daniel was guilty of the crime, and Linda was participating in the cover-up, according to the evidence that was presented. Daniel was found guilty of murdering Jennifer Johnson and was sentenced to life in prison. Linda, who played a role in covering up the crime, received a lighter sentence but still faced serious legal consequences. Mark Johnson, Jennifer's husband, was deeply affected by the tragedy. Although he found some comfort in knowing that justice was served and that those responsible for his wife's death were held accountable, the loss of Jennifer left a permanent scar. Mark struggled to cope with the emotional aftermath, mourning the loss of his beloved wife while trying to rebuild his life. The sentencing of Daniel and Linda brought a sense of closure to the case, but for Mark, the pain of losing Jennifer was something that justice alone could not heal. The tragic events in the quiet community of Pine Hill will never be forgotten by its residents. Thank you for watching our exploration into this gripping story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more true crime documentaries like this.